Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to ATL Prime Sports. KJ Costello, Mississippi State upset LSU number 6. Kansas State came back and beat Oklahoma number 3. Georgia State, they didn't play this week because we found out there were false positives on the COVID test. We'll talk about that. It was shake 'em up Saturday in college football. Georgia Tech lost. Georgia Southern lost as a heartbreaker. And to Louisiana, but least last, the Atlanta Falcons. What can I say? Another just awful, historic loss. And we should save the best for last. Georgia won. Everybody else lost locally, but Georgia. Welcome to ATL Prime Sports. I'm Todd Corder. JJ's with me. We got our guest this evening, Dave Cohen, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers, and we got Wayne, our producer in Memphis. How's everybody doing?
I've been better. I don't like Mondays when Atlanta loses on Sunday.
Well, I got so tongue-tied I couldn't even talk at the beginning here with the Falcons. It's so distressing to watch them play each and every week.
Hey,
well, it's a good weekend. Just about everybody lost.
As a fan, it just leaves you baffled. As a broadcaster, it just says, I think if there's one team in history that you can count on blowing leads, it's the Atlanta Falcons.
Seems to be.
I mean, just think about it. Goes back to the Super Bowl, 28-3. They lose 34-28 to New England. It goes back last week, up 20-0, 29-10. They lose on a last-second field goal. Then last week, they're up 26-10. They're up 16 points in the fourth quarter, and they lose 30-26. And if the Bears had not gotten greedy,
it goes farther back than that. Because remember, Drew Pearson caught a game-winning touchdown pass, and I think the year I was born in '87 when the Falcons were up 24-10 in the fourth quarter.
Well, yeah, that would have been 1980. Thank you very much.
You want to know something?
It's even farther
I was
back.
at that game. I was at that game at Fulton County Stadium.
Really?
No.
That was one of the first Atlanta sporting events I ever attended. I still have the tickets still.
Well,
just like
I'll
me,
tell you what. I remember who quarterbacked Dallas very well that day, Danny White. So I grew up watching the Cowboys and the Lions. The Lions were awful when we were kids. Roger Staubach was my favorite quarterback. So, I remember that game very well. But let's go ahead and JJ, you can reach him at JJ Get You One on social media. You can reach Wayne on social media. Just look up Wayne Memphis. And you can reach Dave Cohen, our voice here of the Georgia State Panthers, at GA Voice on Twitter. And you can get me at Corder Todd. So everybody, just wanted to let you know our show's on every week, every Monday. We'll bring it out on Tuesday or Wednesday. You can tweet us during the week. We'll be glad to answer any questions about any subject you like regarding sports. We're not doing politics. Don't do it. I'm not heading there. So stay with that.
All right.
You said at GA Voice. I'm not the voice of the Georgia Bulldogs.
Oh, I meant GA. Yes, I'm sorry.
It's GA State Voice.
GA State Voice. Why did I? You know what? Because before we got on the air, you kept saying, I'm not Georgia Voice. So, just want to put a little bit of needle in there.
Hey, you know what else you forgot to mention?
What's that?
KJ is so kind to wear the Atlanta Braves gear tonight. The Red Sox came in here and took 2 out of 3 at Truist Park over the weekend.
They did.
Dave, man. You know how to put the – hey, Dave, you know what's going to really hurt? When the Cincinnati Reds –
Sox.
When the Cincinnati Reds take him 2 straight and he goes home another playoff series early, that's what's really going to hurt. Because the Reds, with their stellar starting pitching, should beat the Braves if they hit a lick.
You're giving away the whole show.
I'm just having fun here messing with you. That's what I get to do here every week. All right, let's go into the Atlanta Falcons, another historic loss. Everybody knows they want to fire Dan Quinn. All the Twitterites, the blue check media, they all want to fire him. Let's just go ahead and fire a coach who's won you a Super Bowl, who has a winning record, albeit 43-40. Has been to the playoffs twice in 4 years. Yes, this is year 5, and yes, he's working on a 3rd straight losing season. but it would be absolutely, absolutely wrong for the Atlanta Falcons to fire Dan Quinn right now. It's not the time nor the place with all the injuries on the defensive side of the ball. And, you know, even if they do get all their players back on the defensive side of the ball, this team's not simply good enough to compete at a high NFL level on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, with Julio Jones, even though he didn't play this week, they're more than good enough. But the offense has got to score more than 30 a week to be competitive, gentlemen.
Well, the defense has to make some stops, too. The defense is not so great.
I'm sorry, JJ, when you run the same play 2 times in a row in the same formation and the coaches are putting you in the right position to stop the play, I'm sorry, it's not coaching, it's the players.
Well, on that 3rd and 8 that went to Anthony Miller, I disagree. That was not in the right position. Why are you blitzing everybody and dropping everybody back? A simple post route beat you. A simple post route on basically a Madden Engage 8 blitz. It was a risky play. That in turn, you had a 16-point lead with around 6 minutes to play again, and blew it in 2 consecutive weeks. That's not just on players. You got to put players in position to grind. Guess what? Atlanta didn't grind on offense. They went 3 straight 3-and-outs in the most crucial part of the game and took up a maximum of 45 to 50 seconds in those 3 drives. So, no, that is coaching, TC.
Well,
that
hey,
is coaching. That is time management.
Let me say something real quick. They decided not to run the football because they knew if they ran 2 minutes off the clock and they didn't get a first down, the Bears would still get it back. And the way their offensive line was playing, they weren't going to get a first down running the ball. They figured the only chance.
You put somebody in pressure with 2-minute offenses, it's a lot harder to win a game than when you have 4-minute offense.
Let me finish this one point. They were playing to get first downs and not give the Bears the ball back. They decided to be aggressive because the coaches thought that was their best chance, was to throw the football to be successful. Dave, what do you think about that?
Well, since everybody likes to harken back to 20,
I disagree. When Todd Gurley was
run the football. Run the football.
Exactly.
But you wanted to run it too.
You know, and Matt Ryan takes a lot of heat. Matt Ryan takes a lot of heat. Listen, you know, I'm having deja vu all over again to some of our conversations last year about Georgia State football. We were asking Dan Ellington, because we were scoring 31 points a game, but giving up on average 36. So you're asking your quarterback to lead your offense to score at least 35 to 40 points a game to have a shot to win. That's the Atlanta Falcons this year. You're asking Matt Ryan to go out and score 40 points a game to at least have a chance to win a football game.
My only counterpoint is I understand where you're coming from. Running the football, I do. I understand it. But if your offensive line...
You take time off the clock and you put them in a position.
But they still get the ball back and they still score.
He had 14 carries. He had 14 carries with 80 yards. In the second half, he may have had 7, 8 carries. You can't do that when you're paying a guy to work the rock down the field in a situation like that. You can't sit here and put a pitch count per se, on a running back with 14 carries, 80 yards. Guess what? Brian Hill had 80 yards rushing in a touchdown. You were moving the football on the ground, TC, in the second half. You want to say they were playing for first downs? No, they were playing to lose. It's mental at this point. It is mental. It's all coaching. It is all coaching at this point. You have lost.
Dave, do you agree with JJ on that? Do you agree with him on that?
I don't think it's all coaching.
I do not need.
I agree.
Because at this level, that's why they call it professional sports, professional football. You know, to say that it's in their head, well, you know, maybe it is. And would it have been different had Grady Jarrett, you know, been healthy and been in there yesterday late in the game for the Falcons? I don't know. But, you know, they definitely have shown that they're susceptible to late football game collapses. But run the dadgum football and keep the clock moving.
Right, but if they don't get the first down, the Bears still have enough time to come back and win that game with that defense. They thought their best chance was to throw the ball to get the first down. Now, you could argue it wasn't that case because they didn't have Julio Jones. If they had Julio Jones, they might have won this game. But if we could all if it to death with the injuries, some notes here. The Falcons had a 99.9% to win chance to win against Dallas. 99.6% against the Bears. Foles was the fifth quarterback to come off the bench and throw 3 TDs to lead to a fourth quarter comeback. And here's another one. The Falcons were the first team ever to lose back-to-back games, leading by 15 points or more in the fourth quarter, even though they had 7 players inactive, and 2 of them were cornerbacks, and the other one was Julio Jones. And, there's no excuse they should have won the game.
Exactly. So if there's no excuse, where do you point to? You point to the top. Point to the top. Those are 2 bad records. To me, it's mental. I saw guys out there scared to make plays when you're winning the football game. As a Falcons fan, going to fanism right here, going into fan mode, I'd rather be down. Look, go back to week 1. The Falcons game was out of question in the second half. The best football they played all season. They stopped them. They held Seattle to, I think, 3 points in the second half. They had almost no penalties in the second half. What happened this half? Well, they had 0 penalties in the first half. They had about 7 in the second half. I bet 4 of those were in the fourth quarter. And I'm just throwing these out to the top of my head. I could be wrong. But there was 7 second-half penalties, 0 in the first half. That's unfathomable. That's coaching. That is coaching.
Let me ask you this, and then we'll get on to Georgia State.
I'm upset
think the
about
Falcons should fire Dan Quinn if they lose this week? My answer is no. I don't believe in firing a coach till the end of the season. I think you fire him now. You've got an OC and a DC who've already had head coaching experience, and their record was not very good, where at least Dan Quinn is 43-40 at this point in his 5th season, has taken the team to playoffs twice. What do you think, Dave, first?
I'm in total agreement with you. I'm not for blowing up teams in the middle of the season, especially a team that, on paper and on the field is as talented and has the talented players that the Falcons have. It's not like we're not talking about, a team that is, they are last, but we're not talking about a football team that is devoid of talent. This team has talent. But I think if you start firing coaches midseason, really, who are you going to get? Who are you going to bring in here midseason?
Nobody.
Raheem Morris? No. Dirk Cutter? No. So what are you going to do? It would really be a total rudderless ship for the remainder of the season.
It would be. It would just be awful, and I don't see it. You got to ride it out. If you want to fire him at the end of the season, then that's up to Arthur Blank.
I think Arthur Blank will not fire until the end of the season. But if this isn't turned around, you have to let him go.
When?
Obviously, at the end of the season. Personally, if this was me, I'd blow it up and do what Miami did. Go ahead, get your future quarterback, get your guy in place, get a whole new regimen. But Arthur Blank doesn't work like that.
How are you going to get your future quarterback when you owe Matt Ryan a ton of money and he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league?
Aaron Rodgers is the prime example. They drafted Jordan Love this year. Why? Because Aaron Rodgers is getting old. Matt Ryan is getting old. Whether you like it or not, Father Time is undefeated. And here we go. We're talking about a mega contract on a team that can't compete with, look, like 25% of the payroll is allotted to Julio Jones and Matt Ryan. These are players that are aging. Why would you want to build around something that, look, we are in last place. The facts are the facts. Julio Jones has a hurt hamstring. I don't remember Julio Jones missing a game because of a hurt hamstring. Usually he plays through it. But this year, he's not. It's a different year. It's a different Julio. It's an older Julio. Why?
I don't see any difference in his play on the field. And look at Aaron Rodgers. You mentioned him. He's having one of his best years ever.
Calvin Ridley is outplaying Julio Jones. What are you saying you don't see a difference? Calvin Ridley's clearly outplaying Julio Jones.
They're going to Calvin Ridley because they're doubling Julio Jones. It's kind of hard to get open if you're doubled.
Julio Jones was not doubled in the second game of the season. He was just hurt. He took himself out of it. And this
Dave, what do you think about that? I mean, you can't tank, and you can't tank in the middle of the season. You've got a quarterback that makes a ton of money. It's going to be you're not going to get Trevor Lawrence. You're not. They're not going to finish. They're not going to finish bad enough to get Trevor Lawrence.
I agree with that, and like I said, I don't think they'll blow it up. I don't think Blank would do that. What I want
you
to
just
do
said
fan,
you would blow it up, though. I would not.
As a fan.
Well, you're not. Yeah, but you can't make decisions as a fan. You got to make it as an executive.
That's why I said as a fan. But I know what Arthur Blank's going to do. He's not going to blow it up. I've said that. So I'm right here in the middle. What I think should I do? I think they should blow it up. But I'm a fan. I'm not Arthur Blank. I know what Arthur Blank's going to do. Arthur Blank's going to keep Dan Quinn to the end of the year and then let him go unless he makes a miraculous run to the playoffs, which is him. Look, in the history of the NFL, how many teams have started off 0-3 and made the playoffs? I believe it's one.
You believe it. You better look it up to know it. Dave, what do you think?
Well, I'll add this. What are their chances of being 0-4 by the time we do this show next week?
Well, they won't be 0-4 because they'll be playing while we're doing the show next week.
That's true. But I mean, they're going to be playing the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field. Green Bay's one of the best teams in the league right now. I'll tell you why I don't like blowing up teams if I'm sitting in Arthur Blank's chair in his office, or if I'm JJ and I'm coming at it from the fan standpoint. They're asking fans. Now, this is a COVID-19 year, so let's look at this from every other year other than this year. You're asking fans to buy tickets. You're asking fans to come down and park and buy concessions. And what does it say when you tell them, you know what? We know we're not good enough. We're going to go ahead and blow this team up, but we still want you to pay top dollar to come down and watch us play, come down and pay to park, come down and pay the concession prices, so on and so forth. Why is it okay, and why do fans expect? I mean, why are they okay with teams doing that when at the same time those teams are asking you for top dollar for tickets to come see a product and admitting to your fan base that our product is not worthy of where it is and where it is right now, so we're going to go ahead and blow it up. But, oh, yeah, please continue to buy tickets at the same ticket rate and parking at the same parking rate and everything else at the same rate. If you're going to put a cut rate product on the field, give me cut rate ticket prices.
And they're not doing that from a business perspective.
And it's 2%. It's 2%. So I was off by 1%. 2% of NFL teams in the history of this league have made it going over 3.
Now you do have the extra slot, so it may change that, but I don't know.
But let's see what happens. Right now it's the 81 Jets, the 82 Bucks, the 92 Chargers, the 95 Lions, the 98 Bills, and as recently as the 2018 Houston Texans when Deshaun Watson did it. So,
oh man, again, I remember the 95 Lions. They got spanked in the playoffs here by the Eagles.
2%. It's unbelievable.
All right, well, let's go ahead. Let's talk Georgia's. I'm sorry. Somebody said something. Go ahead.
I was just saying, very few teams is my end statement. Very few teams make it at 0-3.
All right.
Rebuild the Georgia Dome.
There you go. Rebuild the Georgia Dome.
I'm all for it, Dan.
All right, let's go on to Georgia State and the issues they had with COVID-19 this week. We all know their game was canceled. As we found out, they were all false positive tests. They could have played the game against Charlotte. It'll be made up later. And now Georgia State plays East Carolina this week. Dave, what do you know about what went on at Georgia State with the tests?
Well, I was at practice on Friday, and it was a normal practice. And I just assumed that, later that day they would get on the bus and head to Charlotte. We had a change of plans as the radio crew. Initially, the four of us were going to drive up separately at our own leisure. But then the decision was made that, going on the assumption that they would be playing in Charlotte on Saturday, we were going to do the game by a virtual remote broadcast from Center Park Credit Union Stadium down at Georgia State. Of course, as it turns out, later that Friday afternoon, and unknown to me, I get an email saying, heads up on an email that's coming out in about 15 minutes. Tomorrow's game has been postponed / canceled due to positive COVID tests. And I was kind of surprised at that because, again, I had just been 2 or 3 hours prior that morning at practice, and everything just seemed to be, moving at a normal pace. So I was kind of surprised at that. And of course, as it turns out, the game could have been played, but Georgia State, throwing caution, onto the field, made the decision that at the time, with the information that they had, assuming that there were 4 or 5 players that had tested positive, and I think 1 assistant coach, they made the decision, and wisely at the time, knowing what they knew at the time, not to go to Charlotte and try to play that football game. We had a similar situation the previous couple of weeks, because if you remember when Louisiana Lafayette went to Iowa State and won that game, there were a couple of wild accusations afterwards, after there was a minor breakout in Ames, that Louisiana Lafayette may have brought it to Ames and caused a spread there. I'd never heard that about them coming to Atlanta and being responsible for any breakout, other than the fact that in their game against Georgia Southern this past Saturday, of which Louisiana won on a 56-yard field goal, five players for the Raging Cajuns did not dress out, including the league's #1 running back, Elijah Mitchell, who tore us up in that overtime loss to the Raging Cajuns 2 Saturdays ago. So, I think Georgia State made the right decision with the information that they had at the time. It's right. In this instance, it is hindsight is 2020. Yeah, they could have gone to Charlotte and they could have played, but see, they didn't know that Friday morning when those positives came in.
That's very interesting. They did the right decision, obviously, because they didn't know. And then you mentioned Georgia Southern losing a heartbreaker. That's really got to bother a Georgia State fan there, I'm telling you. I mean, to lose Georgia Southern to lose. Right, I bet it did. And Louisiana, they're the favorite now. I mean, they're winning games close, and they're doing the right things. They're doing the little things to in all 3 areas, offense, defense, and special teams, to lead the Sun Belt. Are they still ranked? I haven't seen the rankings. Are they still ranked?
No, we were talking about that with some folks on Twitter earlier today. The Power 5 Treehouse is open, guys.
What's that? Treehouse.
Yeah, that's that really nice, fancy treehouse that the Power 5 built. Nobody else is allowed in it. There are teams in the top 25 poll this week that haven't played a game yet this year. They got in just because their leagues announced that they're coming back. Yeah. What a joke.
Exactly.
What a complete and utter joke on behalf of the college football top 25 poll.
I agree.
Don't forget about Appalachian State. I mean, barring anybody upsetting Appalachian State or Louisiana, the Sun Belt could be looking at, for the 3rd consecutive year, a Sun Belt championship game featuring the Mountaineers and the Raging Cajun.
I tell you what,
it looks that way.
It does.
What a joke on that top 25 poll. That is a complete joke.
Do they have any Pac-12 teams in that poll? I'm JJ or Dave. Do they have any Pac-12 teams in that poll? Oregon?
Is
Oregon in it?
Let me see. You're talking about
I haven't looked at it, actually.
You're talking about the AP?
Yeah, the AP. I don't know if they put Pac-12 teams back in it yet or not.
I don't see any in there.
But,
they did put some Big Ten teams back in there, right?
Yes, they did put Big Ten.
It's a sham.
How does Louisiana at 3-0 drop out?
Yeah,
exactly.
That's a great question. I agree. They should be in the top 25. They're 3-0. Michigan hasn't played a game. They're 23rd. That's my alma mater. I agree with that. Now, maybe Michigan is a top 25 team, and they should be, but you don't know until they start playing games. Right. All you can do is rank them on how the games they play, and I wouldn't include them in the poll until after they play in late October. That's when I would include them.
I was a Michigan fan wearing an SEC hat.
Hey, I told you I went to the SEC basketball tournament. I picked this hat cost me more than it did the basketball ticket. I went $10 and watched basketball all day while my wife was working. And I walked back to the hotel. It was about 10 blocks. And I'm like, well, this hat's $15. Let's see. The tickets are 10. Food's like, what, 5 to 7? It was cheap in the beautiful Nashville arena where the Predators play. Hey, I'll enjoy the experience. I put every school's on the side of this hat. So nobody can say, who do you root for? I root for them all.
Well, there's 6 teams that are now ranked that were not ranked last week. And of those 6 teams, none of them have played. And it knocked Memphis from 17 all the way down to 25 in the AP.
Wow. And knocked Louisiana out. That's the tragedy. That's a tragedy.
I just don't. I'd love to be a fly on the wall, and also I want to see transparency from what these writers say and why they rank these teams. That's crazy. I'm with you, Dave. That's not fair. We've talked about that. They also need to expand the playoffs this year, just because it's a crazy year. That's another discussion for another day. But you're listening to Dave Cohen right here on ATL Prime Sports. Dave, got a question for you. Been watching a lot of some at the old logo, while Georgia State is rocking a brand new, looking cool SBC Sunbelt Conference logo. Do you know the answer to that?
You dropped out for a minute. Are you talking about the Georgia State logo or the actual Sunbelt Conference logo?
Sunbelt Conference logo is what he's talking about.
Yes, the conference logo. I've noticed. Yes, I noticed like the Chanticleers, they were wearing the old logo while Georgia State was wearing the new Sunbelt logo.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't notice that. I'm really kind of surprised because it's a relatively new commissioner, and so the league went through a little bit of a rebranding. They're still based out of the Superdome in New Orleans, but there's been some new faces in the Sunbelt Conference, starting from the commissioner on down in the league offices, and one of the things they did is rebranded. I'm really kind of surprised that, I would think that a mandate would have been sent out to all 10 football playing schools, and then the other 2 that play basketball only in UT Arlington and Arkansas Little Rock, that on every uniform, on every publication, and in every arena and facility, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, softball, within a reasonable amount of time, that the updated Sunbelt Conference logo would need to be in place. Kind of surprised that. To be honest, JJ, I didn't notice that. I did not notice that.
I was just kind of like, well, maybe Dave is a reason. So I was just going to. I'll follow up with Dave with the week off last week. How's that going to benefit or hurt the Panthers going into this weekend at East Carolina?
Well, I don't think it will hurt. In my opinion, I felt really, really good. The way they played against Louisiana, to really that could fall under the heading of woulda, coulda, shoulda, won that ball game, but they didn't. And Louisiana, to their credit, pulled it out in overtime. But I really did like the way that Georgia State showed in their first game of the season. Remember, that's a tough game to open up with, considering they should have already played Murray State at home and should have already played at Alabama. And then they've got to open up at home against one of the top 2 teams in the Sun Belt Conference. So I thought Cornelius Brown looked pretty good for a kid that only appeared in 4 games last year. He did not look like he did a year ago. He looked a lot more seasoned, a lot more cool, calm, and collective at quarterback. And I'm sure he's gone back and watched some film since that first game and has seen a few of the mistakes that he would have made. But he ran the ball well. We've gotten used to seeing Dan Ellington the last 2 years be able to carry the football while also hurt you in the air. And Cornelius did that, I thought, pretty well. We ran the ball well. The big question was who's going to replace Trey Barnett, who led the Sun Belt Conference in rushing last year. Destin Coates had for him, a personal best, 160 or 150 yards. So, I thought that, Georgia State showed pretty well against, again, one of the 2 best teams in the Sun Belt Conference. I felt really good about our chances going to Charlotte because everybody was healthy, football healthy, I'll say. But of course, that game, I'm assuming that game will end up being rescheduled because it's part of a 4-game
It will be.
Yeah,
that's
part
what
of
they said.
Series. Now, whether or not they reschedule it this year, I don't know, or if it gets backlogged in a future season, that I'm not sure either. But, East Carolina, got a chance to watch a little bit of them on Saturday, and they got steamrolled by a very, very good UCF team. So
Georgia Tech knows what that's like.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So again, I'm going to hit practice probably at least 2 more times this week. I was at practice earlier this morning, and I like the way Georgia State played that first game. I like the way they're practicing, and I feel good about going into the East Carolina game after watching them on Saturday. And that's not to say they're not a good football team, because they lost to a really good football team.
Right.
The UCF didn't get bounced out of the top 25 by some teams in Power 5 leagues that haven't played a game yet. Did they?
No, they're still in the top 25. They're really good.
I'm asking that question a little. I'm asking that a little facetiously.
Yeah, sure you are, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I caught it. And number 2, UCF. This is the argument that you're going to get, and you're going to hate it. Well, UCF has a track record. Teams like Louisiana don't. And they don't get the respect because they're in the Sun Belt and all that jazz, which I think is absolutely wrong here. This is a Georgia State. Sean Elliott came in, Dave, and changed the mentality of this football program. They run the ball. They're learning to. They're getting better at stopping the run. I mean, you can see improvements on the line of scrimmage, and since he's been there, and this is a team that's on the cusp for competing for this conference, and I think they're on the cusp for competing for it this year. What do you think?
Well, there are signs. I saw a sign or 2 last year. Of course, we struggled down the stretch with injuries and lost 4 of the last 5. But one sign that jumped out to me late when we jumped out early, 21-7 on Appalachian State. Granted, Appy flexed their muscles, ended up coming back, winning that ball game. We beat Arkansas State last year. First time we'd beaten them. Went toe-to-toe with Louisiana, as I mentioned, this year, losing a woulda, coulda, shoulda game in overtime in Atlanta. In the past, in the first couple of seasons in the Sun Belt, those games were not close for us, for the most part. So you can see the competitive rise and the improvement, as you mentioned, in Georgia State football. Is that going to happen this year? Is it going to be next year? I don't know, but I think sooner than later, with the talent base that Georgia State has to recruit from, which is primarily they recruit Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, there's more than enough talent. There's no reason why Georgia State should not be a bowl team every single year. And I think sooner than later, Georgia State will be rising to be in the top 3, top 4 in the Sun Belt Conference every year. Right now, it's Appalachian State, it's Louisiana, it's been Arkansas State, and as much as it pains me to say, Georgia Southern, along with Appy, made a seamless transition from being a top 15, top 20 program at the FCS level to being extremely competitive right out of the gate at the lower level of the Group of 5 when both transitioned into the Sun Belt Conference. So Georgia State's road is a little bit different than what, say, Appalachian State and Georgia Southern traveled on. Those teams were both they were power teams at the FCS level. Georgia State had only been playing, 6 years total, or 7 years total?
Right.
6 years when we jumped from being an FCS program to being an FBS program. So they're 2 roads traveled totally differently. It's going to take Georgia State a little while to kind of catch up, but we're seeing signs that that's happening.
Well, you got to love it. Hey, guys, there's the connection there. Wayne and Dave have a connection today, Memphis and Georgia State, don't they, JJ?
Yeah, Wayne, one of these Memphis players transferred to Georgia State today. Dave, could you tell us a little more about that?
Well, Ryan Boyce has been with the program. He was on the bench last year in street clothes, sitting out. And
the waivers cleared.
Yeah, the question all summer was concerning the NCAA waiver rule, which kind of differs from day to day. Was he going to have to sit out the first semester of this coming season, or would he be eligible right away? And of course, that's the ruling came down today that he would be eligible right away. There is one other Georgia State-Memphis connection, and that is Rodney Hamilton, who is one of the all-time greats in Georgia State basketball history and the first Panther basketball player to be inducted into our Georgia State Athletics Hall of Fame. He's from Memphis. He played at Whitehaven, and he is, after being at Tennessee State in Nashville for a few years, he is back in Memphis, went back 2 years ago as director of operations under Penny Hardaway at Memphis for Memphis basketball.
All right.
Wow. Well, let's stay with college football. Let's go over to the Southeastern Conference. Let's talk about KJ Costello and his record 625 yards of passing. What an incredible performance against Louisiana State. And now, Mike Leach has really got it going on. It was his first game at Mississippi State. They went from unranked to 14th in the country. Guys, in 4 weeks, if they continue to play, they could be 5-0 going into Tuscaloosa. That's could be, and that's a long way off. That's, looking down the road. Dave, did you get a chance to see that game on Saturday?
I was flipping channels. I was mainly watching Louisiana and Georgia Southern, and then watching UCF and East Carolina. I don't follow the SEC. I didn't go to an SEC school. I hope all of them.
Oh no, here we go.
Just lose every game. Get out of the treehouse. Let somebody else come on up and have some fun.
Well, maybe Mississippi State is the one that's going to have fun in the SEC this year and surprise. I mean, this is pandemic football. We're getting a shock. Look at Oklahoma. They did the Falcons this week. They were up 35-14 and 28-7 and lost. Lincoln Riley put on his Dan Quinn hat, as JJ would say.
Let's blow
it's on right now. There you go.
Here, let me put on my Atlanta hat. Let's give up 10 runs in the first inning. Check.
Don't worry, you're going to do that to the Cincinnati Reds. Check. Oops, I'm sorry, I gave that away.
Let's be the number 1 seed in the NBA playoffs and get swept in the conference finals. Check.
Well, when it comes to Atlanta sports, expect the unexpected. I mean, this is a town that's had professional sports since the late 60s. They have one championship. It was during a strike-shortened season where they played 140 games. Now, I still think they would have won it all if they played 162 that year. They proved they were the best team. But that's the history of Atlanta sports. There's so many heartbreaking losses between the Braves, the Falcons, and the Hawks. We could do a whole show on it easily.
A whole show on it. There's Bulldogs in there.
Well, now Georgia, a little bit more better history there, I would say.
Well, they've got a history of a winning program, but they're celebrating their 40 year since the last championship. What a joke! The players that have come through Athens and they hadn't won a championship since 1980, and they would not have won that one if it wasn't for 34 out of Wrightsville, Georgia.
Did you know 40 years ago, Georgia's first points when they played in their first game of the season, when they won the national championship, was the safety? Georgia this year for this game, they put the red breeches on, which I like the gray way better. Their first points on Saturday was the safety. How ironic.
Maybe it's foreshadowing.
That. Oh, I knew you were coming out with that. I was counting in my head. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Let me just circle back. Typical Atlanta. You know what Atlanta's known for with regards to sports? Facilities. Let's go to Cobb County and rip off the taxpayers out there of $400 million for Truist Park, which turned out to be a blessing for Georgia State because we ended up getting Turner Field and converted it into a football stadium. The Georgia Dome was a beautiful facility. It was barely 20 years old. Got to tear that down and build a brand new Mercedes-Benz stadium that now, of course, how ironic that you can't have fans in the stadium. And then the Hawks have to build the Omni wasn't good enough. So they went and they built Phillips Arena, now State Farm Arena. And all you ever hear about it, there's a barber shop in there, or there's a courtside bar in there, or there's this in there, there's a restaurant in there. How about put some players in there and win some games?
Well, that's not Atlanta's style historically. It's not Atlanta's style.
And
it's not.
Teams that wasn't invited to Orlando.
Well, hey, during the Super Bowl when New England, they showed all the historical amount of Boston's championships. They showed a boatload of them, and they showed Atlanta had one. When you look at it, for the size of the city Atlanta has, it has the least professional sports championships of anybody. At one time, they had 4 major sports here at 2 different times between the Flames and the Thrashers. They have 1 championship since the late 60s.
Don't forget about Evander Holyfield and Bill Elliott.
Oh, man. You know what? That's funny.
We've lost more hockey teams than we won championships.
That's right. That's right. They each of them went to Canada. One went to Calgary and no one's in Winnipeg.
That's not the fault of the fan base.
That's right.
Nope.
That's right.
That's the fault of poor ownership.
Right.
Yep.
Atlanta could be a good hockey town if it ever had good ownership.
Dave, I'll jump on that point and say they should have built the arena when they had all that room off 400 and Mansell. They had all that room to build a hockey arena. They would have packed it every night. That was the side of the town where you wanted to put it. And now, of course, they've got mini malls and shops there, and we have 1,000 in Atlanta anyway. And the way the pandemic's going, half of them could go out of business, as sad as that is. You could have had a hockey arena right off 400.
They could have used the same excuse the Braves used for vacating downtown Atlanta to build a baseball park on the north side of town. The answer was, well, that's where our majority of our fan base is. I'm like, so what you're saying, you have no fans south of the city, nobody in Noonan, nobody in Fayetteville, nobody in Peachtree City, nobody out on 20 east or west is a Braves fan. They're all located just north of the city.
Exactly. You know what somebody did on Twitter, and I was and Wayne was going to retweet it, and I'm like, I don't know, it's cold-blooded. I thought, you know what, since Dave's gone this far, I'm going to finish it. You know what somebody put on Twitter? Atlanta sports professional sports favorite soft drink, Choke. Oh my gosh, man, that was cruel.
Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola Classic.
Well, we have the classic. The classic was the Super Bowl against New England, and the other classic on the baseball side is blowing a 2-0 lead and up 6-0 in Game 4 and lost to the Yankees in Joe Torre in '96.
I was at those games too.
Oh man, let's see. They were telling the relief pitcher at the time. I remember the telecast. They were telling him, stop throwing the off speed, stick with a fastball. And Wohlers decided to stick with the off speed, and Laritz hit it where it hasn't landed yet. So, I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, anyway, let's go. Let's talk about something positive, please. Let's talk about Georgia this week. Who's going to be the quarterback? Dave, I want to hear your answer first. Is he with us?
Yeah, I'm here. You know, my answer to that is I could care less. I'm happy Stetson Bennett came back to Georgia and walked into the role that he walked in last week. But I don't know. I don't follow Georgia, so I mean, I follow it from afar. I was sitting in a nice Italian restaurant in East Cobb County on Saturday night with that game off in the distance, just enough to see what the score was. But
Stetson Bennett reminds me a little bit of Brian Greasy.
Played great.
He's a walk-on, isn't flashy, gets the job done, and now we've got Kirby Smart between DeJuan Mathis, Stetson Bennett, now JT Daniels, and then of course the fourth kid, the freshman, the one that you like, JJ.
Yeah, I like Carson Beck a lot. If we're just going to go with best and raw talent, I think Carson Beck has the best quarterback ability in the room. But you want to go with the guy that can run the offense best, give you the best chance to win, and make the least mistakes, and that's probably Stetson Bennett. But then you go with another dimension of that. If you want a guy that can extend plays, run outside the pocket, and give you RPOs, that's DeJuan Mathis. So there's still – and then the wild card is if JT Daniels is healthy, maybe he'll come out and start throwing the ball perfectly, and maybe he'll be the wild card. I would hate to be the quarterback coach. I would hate to make this decision. But if it's me, I'm throwing DeJuan Mathis back out there just to try and give him more experience, see what he does, give him a short leash. I know, TC, you don't like that. We've talked about it off air. No short leash, you don't like that. But to me, in a weird pandemic season, I think you got to play to win the game, as Herm Edwards would say. Hello, you play to win the game. So I think the most the best ability to win the game right now, Dwan Mathis, get him calmed down. Hopefully he can make some throws. He looked good in some portions of the game. I mean, he extended plays. He made simple throws. What he did is when he got in the red zone, looked terrible. When you got past that 50-yard line, he fumbled snaps. He overthrew passes. And then that's where I think Stetson Bennett would come in, and the experience. But it's a mouthful right now. I don't know who all four quarterbacks could come in and win you the ball game. Kirby Smart's going to have to make a decision.
Look, this is not Arkansas here. This is Auburn in their front four. I would play Stetson Bennett, but from what I've seen between Dwan Mathis and Stetson Bennett, you got to play the kid who played better. That would be the common sense thing that I think they're going to do, but I could be wrong. Maybe he will go to Mathis. Who knows what Kirby Smart's going to do? He's not going to announce a starter.
Exactly.
So
it really depends on what they do during practice. Kirby Smart is a Nick Saban guy. If you practice great, you're going to play, and you're going to be the number one. If you practice, have a great week of practice, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart are the type of coaches that say, hey, you got the starting job this week. Go in there and play. So I'd really love to be a fly on the wall in that quarterback room this week. But I mean, I'd say give the nod to the redshirt freshman with the ability. Let Dwan Mathis take a chance. Give him a short leash. Put Bennett. I combine Stetson and Bennett at the same time. Or JT Daniels in to mop up the duty if need be. You're right. This is Auburn. But right now, Georgia's 7-point favorites.
Can I give you one observation?
We want to. Go ahead.
Yeah, the one difference between pandemic football 2020 and previous years in the case of the SEC, these quarterbacks that you're talking about under normal conditions would have had 4 non-conference games to play for Coach Smart and the rest of his staff to better analyze who was ready for the job, whether they were playing a Sun Belt school, whether they were playing an FCS school. You know, they didn't get that opportunity this year because the SEC made the decision not to play non-conference games. So they're going right into the buzzsaw, and they're having to basically, decide on a quarterback on the run in the middle of their conference schedule, which under normal conditions with 4 non-conference games, at least 2 of those against what we'll call an FCS or a group of 5 school, would have given them an opportunity to do that with their 4 quarterbacks.
Well, against this Auburn defense, this is a way better defense than Arkansas. I'm guessing, and this is a pure guess, that they'll put Stetson Bennett out there because he makes the least mistakes. And if you make a mistake in your own territory against Auburn, you're going to be in trouble against Bo Nix. This is not Arkansas. They will cash in. And you can't turn the ball over if you're Georgia and win this game. You've got to play a clean football game. You can't play a half that you played in the first half against Arkansas, or Auburn will win this game easily. Well, not easily, but you could win it comfortably. Well, yeah, but they can't keep them in it if they're on their side of their field all day. I mean, they played great on Saturday, their defense, no question.
Defense scored points.
I know. Their defense was –
maybe, but I'm with you. I do think the decision would be to start Stetson Bennett. He gave you 211 yards passing. He gave you 2 touchdowns. He led to a win in everybody's eyes. But to me, if Dwan Mathis won the job in spring and he won throughout the competition, give him the job. But as Dave said, there's no conference gimmies. There's no, I shouldn't say conference gimmies. There's no warm-ups. There's no
they didn't have spring practice. They had nothing.
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. Exactly.
So you go with somebody who has experience.
Go with the hot hand. So I think to say the short leash, I think every quarterback's going to have a short leash, unless it's the proven guy like Bo Nix. I think every quarterback at Georgia's room will have a short leash. Everyone.
No, Auburn's going to win that game anyway.
That's what I was waiting for Wayne to say. I was sitting there counting in my head going, 1, 2, 3, come out with it. Who has the better quarterback? I was waiting for Wayne to say that. He's going to say Bo Nix. Who do you think's going to win, Dave?
Who, Georgia and Auburn?
Yes.
Could care less.
Pick
That's a great
winner.
pick.
Where is the game? At Auburn?
No.
I don't think it matters. There's hardly any fans in the stands. What does it matter? I mean, the road teams are winning games. It doesn't really matter if you're home anymore.
That's true.
You can do a silent count now. The Packers last night were doing a silent count in a Superdome in New Orleans. There's no fans there. They're like, fine, I can do a silent count. That makes a big difference coming up to the line of scrimmage.
Well,
I don't think it matters.
That's a game I had interest in last night. New Orleans and Green Bay. You had two former Georgia State kids playing. Will Lutz for the Saints and Chandon Sullivan, nickelback for the Packers.
And we had the punter on there for the Jaguars that went to Georgia State. We had him on earlier in the show.
Brandon Wright got called
That's
up
right,
for the
Brandon Wright
man roster last week and kicked in that losing effort against Miami.
Point Sunday. He's the kicker.
Yeah.
So what? I forgot. What's his Twitter handle? It cracked me up. Dave, do you remember his Twitter handle? Earl Punts.
Yeah, Earl Punts.
You would remember that.
Earl
That's
Punts.
scary.
Earl
Punts.
He's a great guy.
That's
I'm a big fan of his. The way he works and you see, it's unbelievable. I mean, to kick to, I give all kickers hats off because that to me is one of the most pressure-filled situations. Hey, go in there like Will Lutz last night, Dave. Sunday Night Football. They're down by 10 points. Drew Brees gets them down in field range. They're going to kick the field goal, kick the onside kick. Will Lutz is under a lot of pressure there. You got to make the field goal, then you got to make a good onside kick for your team. That's pressure, man. I don't see how these kickers do it. Brandon Wright, hats off to him for doing both jobs last week. Unbelievable. That's great news.
Not to sidetrack all the Southeastern Conference talk tonight, but the thing that Jacksonville liked about Brandon, and you guys may have talked with him about this when you had him on, not only was he at Georgia State a place kicker, but he handled punting and he handled kickoffs.
Right. He did talk about that.
The kicking game, he can handle it. So
he's going to stick around
to a lot of teams.
It sure does, no doubt.
Wonderful kid.
Well, let's switch over to the Diamond. Let's switch over to the Braves and Reds. This is a best of three, but it will be a 2-game series. Sorry, JJ. The Braves are going to go home early again. No, we'll see. I mean, honestly, it's a battle of Atlanta has a great lineup, and Cincinnati has great starting pitching. I mean, the advantage to the Reds with Trevor and Bauer all on the mound in a best of three with Luis Castillo and Sonny Gray, where the Braves, they have Max Fried, and the other two are undecided. If Cincinnati doesn't hit 212 in this series like they did in the regular season, they could win this series if they pitch well. It ought to be very interesting. Davey, you follow the Braves at all?
Very little. I mean, it's hard to watch Major League Baseball games now when they're playing in basically college-sized ballparks. When I see home runs going out at 330, 335, hell, at Georgia State, it's 330 and 335 down the left and right field line. There should be no ballpark in Major League Baseball that has a fence any closer than 400 feet.
Right.
Wow. And you're a Boston guy, so
too.
Yeah, they are.
I say that fully understanding and coming forth and saying, yes, Fenway Park is a little different, as is Wrigley. Though Fenway was built in 1912, and it's not possible to move the fences back in that ballpark. But if in Boston they ever build, and hopefully they won't, a new ballpark, they're better. There should not be a fence closer than 400 feet, and they should be a little further than that.
Yeah.
Now in college, I'm sorry, Wayne, go ahead.
Will there still be a big green wall though?
That's the thing. How do you move the green monster further out onto Lansdowne Street, which is the street that runs behind the monster?
Right. I actually was supposed to see the Reds and the Red Sox in Boston. I was going to take my wife for her birthday, and I was going to go watch the game with my cousins who are from Cincinnati to meet us there. And my wife was going to go do her thing, and that was a present for me and her, honestly. But I was going to go until the pandemic happened this year. I wanted to see Fenway Park the first time. But this is. But back to Dave, you talked about the size of the parks. Hitting with the wooden bat is way different than hitting with an aluminum bat, though.
This is true.
It's a lot harder to knock it out with a wooden bat than it is aluminum.
Look at the physical capabilities and the physical training and the weight programs and the nutrition programs that players have nowadays compared to just what they had 10 to 15 years ago.
You know what, Dave? I could counter this and say they could keep the fences where they are if they do two things. One, call it the traditional high strike up here. Two, raise that doggone mound back to what it was pre-1969. The last time they had the mound way up was the 68 World Series when the Tigers came down from 3-1. I like saying this being a Tigers fan. Came back 3-1 and beat the Cardinals 4-3, even though I was only 4 years old. So, I would like to see them raise the mound with that. I think that would help and cut down on the home runs. What do you think, Dave?
I tend to agree, but, with a guy like Bob Gibson in 1968, would it have made a difference?
He would have just threw inside. And back today, you can throw inside and you're not, they're not charging the mound. I mean, this stuff about you can't throw inside anymore, it's absolutely ridiculous. Hey, I'm making $4 million a year. You can't hit me. I mean, I need to have the money for my kids' grandkids. I mean, I just, this is insane. If you're able to pitch inside and raise the mound and call the regular strike, I mean, you're going to cut down on the home runs. 1, 2. These guys will start trying to, hit for average. Now all they do is swing for the fence because they know the strike zone's minuscule and they're bigger, stronger, and faster, like Dave said. And they're looking for a pitch right at a little itty-bitty spot, and they're going to look at it, and they're swinging out of their shoes to hit it. Nobody ever chokes up on the bat anymore when they got 2 strikes. The approach does not change in Major League Baseball. It hasn't changed for a while. So that's my solution to knock out the home runs. I'm sorry, JJ.
Another thing is with all the long balls and the strikeouts and the shifts and everything, baseball's just the dimensions are changing. So I like the idea of pushing back the fences, raising the mound. Maybe lengthening. Some people say lengthen the base path. Maybe make some plays longer.
No, I don't want to do that.
I don't like that idea either. But people have talked about it to give players more room for other plays, and I don't know about that. But I like pushing the fences back. I'm interested in that because Acuna's home run the other night still going. I mean, it's 495 feet blast the other night, the longest of the MLB season, and the stat casts off the bat and all that. The 400 feet sounds about right, Dave.
Well, just think, man. Just think about that. If they did move the fences back a little bit, I just think the game would be much more exciting instead of a strikeout or a walk
or a home run.
They need to change
that's
somewhere.
That's literally what it is.
Home run is cheap. The home run has gotten cheap. It's not a big deal anymore.
Nope.
Not for these guys.
I think you should take the shift away too. Or if the shift is in play, you have to use an outfielder. Sacrifice some space in the outfield. Just something that encourages hitting more than over the fence.
Well, in game 1, you've got Max Fried versus Trevor Bauer. After we went off on that little tangent. Like I said, in Cincinnati, the advantage is the rotation. For the Braves, it's a starting lineup. I'm sorry. The Atlanta baseball tradition continues of losing in the first round. I've got Cincinnati winning 2 straight.
Who do you like in the American League?
To get to the series or to get to what? What are you asking me?
The series.
I like Tampa Bay.
No.
The team with the least payroll versus the team with the most payroll, because I think the Dodgers are going to get there this time, and I think they'll win it all.
Check it out. I think the ALCS is going to be the 2 lowest payrolls in baseball in Oakland and Tampa.
A's and Rays. And guess what?
A's and Rays.
I've got Cincinnati in the NLCS.
In the first round. The Braves are getting over this hump, by the way. I haven't had a chance to come out here and say something.
Oh,
You're
God.
crazy.
I'm going. See y'all later.
This historical offense, you don't think even has a chance? That's you're downplaying.
What's the old adage? Good pitching beats good hitting.
Hey, but you know what? When the team is historic, the team is historic. Nobody's ever scored as many runs through 60 games as the Braves had.
Do they score more than anybody in Major League Baseball this year? Is that true?
No, they were second because somebody came up and late in the game and hit a home run. I believe it was the Dodgers that took it up. But it's very close. They were 348. They were second. It's a lot of runs in 60 games. They had 2 games in which they scored 10 runs and 11 runs in an inning. And I don't think they did it against. They've done it against DeGrom. They've done it against Scherzer. They've done it against Urena. They've done it against good pitchers in this division. I don't see why they can't go to another
When is the last time they won a playoff series? Tell me.
2001, but they're
You
bound.
were in diapers almost.
No,
You're young. You were almost
school.
in diapers the last time they did that.
No,
Get out the diapers.
I was in high school. But
I know. I'm just messing with you.
I really think you're crazy if you think the Braves are going to lose this series.
I have the Reds playing in the NLCS because it's all about pitching. The 2 best pitching staffs in the National League.
I don't think so.
I'll say it again. The 2 best pitching staffs in the National League are in Los Angeles and Cincinnati. And I think that'll be for the right to go to the World Series. You can throw out the regular season win. You can throw out the regular season in baseball. They're going to pitch every day, so the rotation's going to mean more than ever now. There's no off days in the playoffs, and it's all in one
you can
stadium.
Say everything you want to.
Nobody has home field advantage.
Historic.
Nobody has.
That's what
right.
You can throw everything out the bus.
Not pitching, you can't.
Is out.
Dave, what do you got?
I think.
Hang on.
The Braves are going to out-hit them.
Dave, who do you have going the World Series? You follow a little bit of baseball. I know you do. A Red Sox fan.
Yeah, but I'm kind of ticked off the Red Sox fired Ron Renicky. How do you fire your manager when you don't give him the? Look where the Red Sox lost from their team a year ago. The best Red Sox. 2 of the best Red Sox players were out in Los Angeles this year.
Right.
And you go and you fire your manager at the end of the season in a pandemic game shortened season. What a joke. But the Red Sox aren't there. It might as well be the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, but they beat Cincinnati. That's hard to tell.
As you said, it's a very quintessential matchup. Pitching against offense.
It is, and usually pitching wins. That's why I'm picking them. It isn't because it's just the way it is. I'm picking the teams that pitch the best usually win, especially in this tournament. I mean, that's what it's all about. 60 feet, 6 inches.
And you mentioned pitching, and you act like the Braves don't have any. Max
have a great bullpen.
Great pitcher. He is a serious Cy Young contender until he gets hurt. Then you look at Ian Anderson and Kyle Wright. Kyle Wright has changed the corner in the second half of the season. Ian Anderson has beat three quality teams in his first 3 starts. Max Fried's undefeated. I don't think you can get much better than those 3 pitchers right now. They're playing hot. They got a great bullpen, probably the best in baseball. You're discrediting a great offensive team with the decent pitching staff. Sure, their offensive.
You have the younger generation mentality. You think you can bang your way to a World Series. It's not going to happen.
It's about to start happening soon. These balls are juiced, and the pandemic baseball is going to happen.
Pandemic baseballs. Dave, tell us where we can catch you this Saturday, and we're going to wrap this thing up.
All right, we'll talk to you from Center Park Credit Union Stadium on Saturday. Airtime 11:30 in the morning with our Panther pregame show. Kickoff just after 12 noon. Georgia State, East Carolina will be on 88.5 FM WRAS, the 50,000-watt FM flagship. We'll be on up in Gainesville, WGTJ 97.5 FM, 1330 AM. And then, of course, via TuneIn Radio, search WRAS and of course, all the other streaming options at GeorgiaStateSports.com. And I believe, even though radio never promotes television, I think this is an ESPNU game. That's been one of the benefits of the Power Fives sitting on the sideline. National television has been begging for programming. Sunbelt has had 1 or 2, sometimes 3 nationally televised games every weekend.
Yep,
that's correct.
And Memphis also plays this weekend at SMU, and that's going to be on ESPN2 at 2:30. Well, 2:30.
All right, JJ, give us the Georgia game. We know you can't wait.
I'm taking the Dogs. Recruiting.
I'm with Wayne. I'll pick the War Eagle. And my game this week is 98. It's going to be on 98.9 Great Classics out in Carrollton, Georgia. I'll be on the call with Verlin Best. I'm going to have the Villa Rica Wildcats versus the Central Lions. It's a series that goes back a long way. The schools are only 17 miles apart. It'll also be the Facebook Live game of the week out in West Georgia. I can't wait to call it. Should be fun.
All right, bring back a W.
Well, I'm for either. I'm not for either team here. I am just calling the play-by-play. I'm an innocent bystander. I don't have a dog in the fight. Villa Rica is a program that needs to get their offense going, though. They've scored 13 points in the last 2 games. They play well in spurts, and Central's coming off an amazing win, a 29-28 win over Whitewalter, and they went ahead and went for the 2-point conversion, and Narada Levet got it. So that's put Central's 1-1, Villa Rica's 1-2. It'll be live from Roy Rogers Memorial Stadium on Friday at 7:30. Pregame is at 7:10 p.m. So that'll do it, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on ATL Prime Sports. Dave, thank you for staying on the whole show today. We probably bored you with the Southeastern Conference talk. So we all
too much SEC talk. Too much SEC talk, but I appreciate it. It was fun, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Right. You know, we'll do a whole show on Sunbelt one time for you.
What's the time for next week's show?
8 o'clock. This time we'll have Dave on at 8:10, and if he comes on at 8 o'clock, we'll do a whole show on the Sunbelt. We'll do it just for you. So thanks for joining us. All right, everybody. Good night. Have a great evening.
One of these.
All right.